Start your engines, folks.
Hello, you are listening to Off Radar, It's a Movie podcast. I'm James Smith, a professional film and video editor.
I'm James Eatock, a freelance writer and illustrator specialising in 1980s cartoons.
And I'm Neil Brock, aka Nige, the man with two names, former film journalist and currently working in the games industry.
Each week, one of us picks a movie that all three of us either haven't seen in many years or in some cases haven't seen at all.
We each watch the chosen movie, return to the microphone and let you all know exactly what we thought of it.
I'd never really had any interest in watching it and I was proved absolutely right.
I think it's amazing. I really, really love this film.
The film's still a pile of steaming dog shit.
If you fancy joining in and suggesting a movie for us to watch, why not tweet us at Off-Radar Podcast
or email us on offradarpod@gmail.com.
If you like what you hear, please subscribe, share, and by all means, leave a review.
For now, strap in, turn the volume up, and let's go Off Radar. Hello, welcome back to the Italian job, the English job, the Off Radar job. I'm James Smith, and I'm joined by...
I'd like to say that introduction was more like a hand job.
It's more like a fucking... Yeah, I don't know what kind of job, but lots of jobs.
An odd job, I would say.
An odd job.
A random task.
Random jobs. A random job. Yeah, handymans. Yeah, I'm James Smith. I'm joined by James Eatock.
Hello.
And Neil Brock.
All right, governor.
Is that your Michael Caine impression?
No, that's
That's Italian. That's
that's obviously Italian. That was mafioso.
In fact, before we get going,
it wasn't Michael Caine, by the way.
Michael Caine. Go on.
Do your best impressions. I think Eatock's got this down.
I think he's going to do it, isn't he? Go on, Eatock. What's your best Michael Caine?
Goodness, what's like a line from the film?
Well, you know the line.
No, let's wait till we get into it, and once it's flowing, then it'll hit
when
me.
When I think of Michael Caine, I think of. Do you remember that Harry Enfield episode with Michael?
My name is Michael Caine, and I am a nosy neighbour.
I'm a nosy neighbour. I don't like a bird with big hands. Oh no,
that's not bad. That's pretty good.
That was a good. I like that. That was a good one.
That was Paul Whitehouse as Michael Payne, I think he was called.
Payne. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, God. There was a TV show where it was like two Michael Caines living together as well.
Oh, wow.
Like two comedians, and I was like,
that was the whole premise.
Show? Yeah. Nige is searching for it. I can hear Nige.
Yeah, I don't believe it exists. But
right,
okay.
two Michael Caines living together.
I mean,
in fairness, Steve Coogan and Rob Brydon always do Michael Caine accents in The Trip, but I don't remember. Maybe there was. I bet it was like a 90s TV show, but I don't remember what it is, and I can't find it by typing two Michael Caine living together in Google.
For our listeners, go find that for us, please. Desperate to see it. So yeah, today we're talking about The Italian Job, which came out in 1969, suggested by Michael Caine himself, James Eatock.
Did I suggest this?
Yes.
I completely forgot I suggested this.
You did.
I did wonder where it came from.
To do the synopsis.
Yeah, that's why I was when you mentioned the synopsis like about 10 minutes before, I suddenly thought, why am I writing this? And then I thought, did I suggest this? I literally, as I was typing, thinking, I don't remember suggesting this. But
you did. Yeah,
is it our first 60s film as well?
No.
Once Upon a Time in the West.
Yeah, Once Upon a Time in the West is our oldest film we've done on the podcast, which was 68, I think.
Yeah, I think you're right, yeah.
But yeah, first of all, I guess, I mean, asking you two, there's no way you would have not seen this film before we did it for the podcast, unless there's a little Eatock spoiler like...
No, that's not. Imagine. No, I've never seen this film.
I've really wanted to watch. I suggested it because I've never seen it.
Yeah. I thought it would be a fun one to watch for the very first time. No, I'd seen it, of course. Nige had. Smith?
Yeah, I had.
Good boy.
Okay.
Move on. That out. Yeah.
Fine. I hadn't seen it in a while, but I have seen it. I think it's one of those films where I turn it on and it always seems to be like the end 20 minutes. So I feel like I've seen that end 20 minutes like over and over again. But yeah, like I haven't maybe seen the whole film for a while, but yeah.
It was one of those that used to be on like during like bank holidays and stuff, like a Bond film. Occasionally you just have The Italian Job on instead. So yeah, I think I watched it on TV years ago. I had it on like VHS in a very stylish like cardboard box limited edition job that's probably worth about 1p. So there you go.
Here's a story that Smith might appreciate. One of my favourite memories of watching this film, Christmas, like maybe 2007, Cheerful Scout.
Yeah.
I'm a freelancer, and I'm asked to go in over the old Christmas period. You go in for a couple of days, and it's great because it's just you and two others in the building working away. And in our case, QCing or editing every once in a while. And so I went in and like, it's like, take a little extended lunch break, and I go into the kitchen, and it's Andrew Harvey and Rob King, and The Italian Job had literally just started, and we sat there and we watched so much of the film, and it was such a great experience. And it suddenly, after that experience, it suddenly became a Christmas movie for me. So once a year, it's in my Christmas viewing list. It sounds crazy, because obviously it's not a Christmas movie, but it's just one of those like, oh, that was a really fun viewing experience. Very random.
That is random.
I do think it has that charm, though, as like a Christmas film. It's like one of those classic 60s films. It's definitely a holiday pick. Like, everyone thinks about, say, The Great Escape or Bond movies or Mary Poppins or things like that. It's always that kind of... And again, because we grew up with it more than probably some of the people listening to this podcast. So yeah.
Definitely, and I think... probably similar to you guys, I think growing up my dad always loved it, so it was always like one that he'd stick on and it would be on in the background, and when you're quite young, like I was like, oh yeah, and you just kind of slip into it.
One of the funniest things is, before I'd seen this film, I was already very aware of a lot of this film. That sounds crazy. It's not like I'd seen clips of it, but I was aware of the mini chase. And I remember my friends and I went to this I would call it a video game convention, consumer electronics convention, where they'd have like Nintendo, and it was like the N64 was being promoted, and Sega, and it was Earl's Court. I think it's probably still going, this show, but it's probably got a fancier name. I thought it was like an E3 show or something. And we go to this event, and I remember, like, you take a break and you're sitting in one of those kind of dining areas, and they must have released in 98 or 99, they must have released an Italian Job video game. Or maybe it was released on DVD, the film, but they were playing the trailer on loop. And so, but we were like about, I don't know, because we were on like this mezzanine, so we were slightly higher looking down, and we could just hear the audio and see the clip. And we just kept laughing because every time it would come up to the point of like, you're only supposed to blow the bloody doors off. And we would just chuckle, be like, that's such a great line. That's such a great line. And it would, every like few minutes, it would just pop up again. But yeah, I was very aware. And then eventually I saw the film, and and then we shall talk about that as we go.
Yeah, so that game was actually released
there was a game
in 2001. And it was actually released by, it was published by Rockstar, although it wasn't made by them. It was made by Pixel Logic. And obviously it was based on, I believe, the sequel rather than the original. But I don't know for definite. Who knows? But
I mean, like, the thing I definitely saw was because like I said, it was the original.
Michael Caine. Yeah, he was in it. And Phil Cornwall impersonated the voice of him. So.
Oh, Phil Cornwall, who was, oh my God, that's crazy. He was like known for his Michael Caine impression.
So there you go.
Oh, right. Oh. And yeah, the film itself, directed by Peter Collinson, and written by Troy Kennedy Martin. And I had a really quick, I was looking up like both of their careers, but I didn't recognise a whole lot. But with Troy Kennedy Martin, there's a film we've done on the podcast.
Oh, I don't know.
Oh, yeah, we did.
It will be the most bizarre film that you can think of.
Don't tell me it's Ninja Turtles.
I know what it is, but I thought we did a different one because there's two films this actor's done that sound very similar. For some reason, in my head, it did the other one. It was very early in the run.
Right.
Very early in our off-radar run.
I think it was our first ever kind of solo episode that we've done.
For a long time was our highest listened to episode as well.
Convoy?
No.
It's got Arnie in. Let's put it that way.
Oh, what, Red Heat?
Yes.
Yeah.
So the writer of The Italian Job also had a part in writing Red Heat. He was one of the writers.
He also wrote Kelly's Heroes, which you may remember from the 70s. Course. He also did a bunch of writing for TV stuff. So he did the Sweeney 2, the TV series of Sweeney, Z Cars. Didn't write all the episodes, but just every now and again wrote some. And then also, apparently, he was one of the writers on Ferrari, the recent film released with Fassbender. Although I imagine, given that was released in 2023, and the person we're talking about died in 2009, it was probably done and kind of sat on the shelf for a long time, or was adapted. So,
yeah, maybe.
So who knows?
Some part of story or something. Yeah. It's funny how they sometimes credit writers on IMDb. I don't know how much is,
accurate. Yeah.
There you go.
And stars, as we've already said, Michael Caine, Noel Coward, who...
Sir Noel Coward to you.
Sir Noel Coward.
Well... Yeah,
it's Sir Michael Caine as well.
It is Sir Michael Caine. Is it Sir Benny Hill? I don't know.
No, it should be. It should be.
It's funny with Noel Coward. Obviously, coming from a background in theatre, I then studied one of his films in film studies. Called "In Which We Serve," which was a World War II propaganda film that Noel Coward is very Noel Coward in, but it's a really interesting propaganda film that we kind of looked at in that period. Wow. That's probably, I haven't seen a lot of his other work, but
was he like, the Germans are very bad?
Is it basically
like,
yes?
Yeah, I bet. Well,
Hitler has only one ball.
Bollock.
Yeah, bollock. That's what you'd say.
He did like Blithe's Spirit, didn't he? That was one of his most sort of well known, and I think for the time, like, he was recognised as one of the greatest sort of screenwriters. He sort of had a certain level of panache and that classic English sort of vibe as well.
It's crazy. He just like, I mean, we'll get into it obviously, but he's such a screen presence. You just don't get actors, characters, human beings like that anymore.
Yeah, well, I think as well, like, bear in mind, this is someone who was born in the 19th century. So this is the
and he was time.
Well, absolutely. And he was like towards the end of his life. This was the last film he actually made. Like, he was quite ill during the shoot. There's a scene where he's kind of like walking through the prison, as we will get into it, but he's a prisoner for this film, albeit you wouldn't know it by the way he's treated. And even shooting that scene, they had to like cut it multiple times because he just couldn't physically walk as far as he needed to. Nice. And they also filmed a lot of it in Ireland because he didn't want to pay any taxes. So it got like 25 grand for 10 days work in a time where 25 grand was probably a decent little paycheck. So yeah.
And yeah, Itok, obviously you've suggested this film. What's the Italian Job about?
So the synopsis that I wrote 5 minutes before we started recording, or tried to start recording, that's a story for another podcast.
I don't think it is.
I don't think it is. Okay. So the Italian Job, here's my synopsis. Very short. 4 hours later. Charlie Croker, renowned thief, career criminal, and a man of endless charm, is released from prison. Barely a day out of prison, an unexpected message from his recently departed friend Roger is brought to his attention. The message reveals that Roger had been planning a meticulously ambitious heist of $4 million worth of gold bullion from a security convoy in Italy, Turin. In order to fulfill Roger's plan, Charlie Croker contacts Mr. Bridger, a crime lord and British nationalist, I can't say it, who is serving time in prison. As Charlie prepares for the mission, it soon becomes apparent that the Italian mafia are not only aware of Croker's plans, but are also intent on stopping him, believing that any success on his part will be of national embarrassment. With the somewhat reluctant Mr. Bridger's financial backing, Croker, aided by Bridger's associate Camp Freddy, recruits a crew that are more than qualified for the Italian Job. There you go.
What is the Italian Job?
A seating chaos, a smash and grab raid, and $4 million.
$4 million? I think we could take that over, Roger. Go!
Insert the Self-Preservation Society. I've never known a song to be so omnipresent during a film. It's almost like the only song in this film. It's just.
I think aside from the beautiful opening with Matt Monroe's "On Days Like These," Questi giorni quando vieni il
wow!
sole. No, it's like one of my favourite kind of pieces of, I guess, that kind of era of music.
The many things we left unsaid. It's on days like these.
But that opening, I forget what are we driving?
We're in a Ferrari in the Alps.
Going the Alps, yeah.
It's quite interesting because you first of all you hear and see the sound of the Ferrari, but it cuts the sound of that cuts out quite quickly and obviously goes into the song you just mentioned. Whereas they could have kept, the sound effects of the car kind of going throughout, but they choose to actually let that music develop and play out like a opening music video montage, really, of him driving around.
Well, yeah, and it's where the credits are rolling as well. And like a lot of sort of 60s films generally had the long credits at the start of the film rather than the end. And I think it's reminded me so much of like a Bond film, and like I remember GoldenEye specifically as well with Pierce Brosnan, where he's ragging about in a Ferrari sort of on the Alps, but it's definitely kind of got that sort of Connery, Roger Moore kind of vibe in terms of how it plays out, and then it kind of abruptly stops when the Ferrari drives into basically like a giant, like, what is it, a forklift truck type thing that's blocking the tunnel. So yeah, but it's a really like such a memorable and beautiful scene, and like you say, like apart from the self-preservation, which, as I mentioned, is just in this film loads, it almost sets up a completely different film, and then bang, you're suddenly something different, and it works really, really well.
Yeah, what I like about it is it's a very mysterious opening, because you're not sure, this Ferrari's, there's no dialogue, you've got the song, but like the Ferrari's totaled and then just thrown off a cliff, and you're like, okay, well, what's this film about? And then the next shot we see, which is in the UK, is Michael Caine's head pop into shot and look all kind of, cheeky Michael Caine, Jack the Lad.
And then he's like, it's like a scene from Porridge all of a sudden.
It's a great show.
It's
bravo for that show.
All of it, and anyone who's not seen Porridge, a very British prison sitcom with Ronnie Corbett. Ronnie Bart. Yeah, and you always get my Ronnies mixed up.
Can't get your Ronnies wrong.
Don't get your
Ronnies.
Pete Beckinsale's dad was the other chap in Porridge.
In Porridge, yeah.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, because he passed away very young.
Very young.
Yeah, really
very young. It's really, really sad.
But yeah, it's very. Prison is not how it probably really is. It's all very fluffy, and he's like you say, a little cheeky chap, and everyone's like, "Oh, hello, Charlie. Good day to you, sir." And
there's some great ADR in this. Like, and I always like Mr. Bridger's like associate. Okay, Mr. Bridger. He's like this very probably, I'm going to guess a homosexual man, but he's very like, hello, Mr. Bridger, like walking next to him. Okay, very good, Mr. Bridger. Yes, Mr. Bridger. That is good, my friend. But Charlie Croker, like you say, he's walking through the prison. Oh, I have a good one, Charlie. Say hello to the Mrs. Charlie. It's all that kind of thing. It really is.
All that kind of stuff, and it's straight away from his character. You get that charm kind of oozing from Michael Caine.
Michael Caine. And was this before or after?
It's a good question. Yeah,
I did have a look at this. Yeah, so is it before or after Alfie, for instance?
I feel like this is after Alfie.
It was after Alfie. Yeah, it was also after like Funeral in Berlin. It was after Zulu. It was after the Ipris File, but it was before
Get Carter.
It was before Get Carter. Yeah.
Wow.
So he's very much established already at this time as Michael Caine.
Well, at the risk of going into like Nige's trivia very, very early, originally when Paramount wanted to sort of create this film, they wanted Robert Redford to be the lead. And obviously he's someone else who kind of has that glint in his eye and can come across as quite boyish and youthful, but at the same time has enough sort of personality, I think, to carry this type of film. I think Redford could have, it would have been completely different, don't get me wrong. And again,
a very different role.
Well, again, they remade this film with Mark Wahlberg, another person who oozes charisma. What?
Nige's most hated actor of all time. I think you discussed that on
What are you talking about now?
Oh, The Big Hit.
I made a great film.
Yeah.
I made a great film, The Big Hit.
Well, The Big Hit was loosely based on The Italian Job, I heard. So
no, it's based on a job, as in a job.
Based on one of the shit someone did whilst filming The Italian Job. No, wait, that's too harsh. Sorry, I take that back. Anyway,
but interesting. But yeah, like Michael Caine, like they often seem to do with him around this time, they often shoot him from this like low angle to give him this kind of big like kind of screen presence, and straight away he's a ladies' man, he's confident and cool, and although he's a criminal, you can't help but gravitate and like him from the off.
He's just got that screen presence. He's just so charming. You can understand why he's had such a successful career, even in like his elder years, his twilight years now. Anytime he's on the screen, you're like, I'd like to have a drink with Michael Caine.
He's kind of evolved that into like the old wise man, like almost a bit like Morgan Freeman has done as well in that sense.
They've shared screen time in certain films where they like you say, kind of the elder charming statesman, as it were. But yeah, he's in this film, he's like the focus of the opening. I'd say like 20 minutes or so is just him getting out of jail. Lorna, his kind of girlfriend, picks him up. It's like a great scene. He gets picked up. He's like, where'd you get this car from? And she's driving like this really like fancy car. And then he opens the dashboard and he's like, this car belongs to the Pakistani embassy. The Pakistani ambassador. And it's just like, oh boy, he's already in a hot car, as they like to say.
That was actually the car of the ambassador of Pakistan as well.
Oh, was it real? Is this more trivia?
Sprinkles of trivia. No, it's good. Sprinkle it in.
But it was, it was absolutely was. So.
Wow.
It was actually his car. That's crazy.
How the hell did they get that?
It was 60s London. All sorts of crazy shenanigans are going on.
And why would anyone know that?
If you're going to be authentic, then
I mean, fair enough.
Yeah.
Also, dear Pakistani ambassador, do you want your car to be in a movie? Don't mind if I do.
Only if I can have a beer with that charming Michael Caine. Well,
yeah, exactly.
I don't know.
Maybe not a beer. Maybe if I can have like a soft drink with that adorable Michael Caine. But yeah, the moment he's out jail, Lorna, who's like, is quite funny. Her whole deal is, her and Charlie are exclusive, but the first thing, I got you a gift, Charlie, and then you get all these women like, hi, Charlie, nice to meet you, Charlie, hi, Charlie, all these kind of hot chicks in very 90s.
One of them Harry and the Hendersons or something. Hi, Charlie.
Go back and listen to the voices, who I'm guessing... I think I know the voice actress. They were all voiced by one woman because it's the same voice for each, but like a variation. You can tell in the tone. I've listened to enough voice actors over there.
They didn't have the money because they spent it all on the Pakistan ambassador's car. Yeah, ambassador's car. Can you just do the other voice? Yeah, in the minis.
Yeah. But one of my favourite moments is after he sleeps with these women. He comes out. He's all like knackered. And he gets in a fancy car, or he goes to a garage where his Aston Martin is. Yeah. And I guess the owner of the well-to-do gentleman of the owner of like what would you say, the garage kind of. That garage, makes it sound. Yeah, and he's he's like, oh, you've been away, and obviously Charlie's not telling him I've been in prison, so Charlie's putting on this voice like, oh, I'm a well-to-do gentleman, and it's got one of my favourite lines in the movie where he hands him like a bunch of notes, like it's like a lot of money because he pays in cash, and the garage guy's like, oh, because he says, yeah, I've been hunting in Africa, and he goes, oh, you must have shot an awful lot of tigers, sir, and he goes, yes, I used the machine gun, but it's just there's no like, hey, did you hear what I did to the camera? It's just he delivers it so beautifully.
Well, apparently that whole scene was ad-libbed as well. So
oh, really?
They just kind of worked on it together and was
oh man, that's impressive.
I hope that's true. Like, obviously, there's some of these that you can't necessarily say definitively is true, and for the sake of the writer's sake, I don't want to say, oh, yeah, he just made it all up himself because he's Michael Caine. But when I was doing research for this, that's apparently the case, and it is, as you say, a tremendous scene.
Do you fancy sending us a film to review, or letting us know your thoughts on a film that we have discussed? All of your comments will be read out in our end of season leaderboard episode. Email us on offradarpod@gmail.com, tweet us at offradarpodcast, message us on Facebook. All links and info in the description down below.
Do it! Do it!
Noel Coward is kind of like, because he's like this privileged criminal, and at the start you're like, man, he presents himself almost like a king of this jail.
Yeah.
And he even does
big fan of the Queen.
Does the royal wave, and but the way he talks and presents himself is so different to how that probably would be in the modern day equivalent. I'm not saying the remake, but you'd have Ray Winston in this role. Basically, you'd have that kind of thing.
That's a very random thing you just said. Like, about a month or two ago, I watched the Netflix series The Gentleman.
Okay.
And Ray Winston plays that exact role,
oh, really?
The privileged. I'm not joking.
I
was actually going to make that comparison. So that's amazing that you just made that comparison. Like,
oh wow!
In it's a really good series, the Netflix series, The Gentleman,
it's Guy Ritchie, isn't it?
Based on the Guy Ritchie films.
The TV show.
Really good TV show.
I enjoyed the film,
but. Yeah, I enjoyed the film as well. The TV series is really good in its own right. Really great cast, but Ray Winston plays he plays the exact role that you just described, Smith, but with Ray Winston going like, oh, that's what you got to do. Like, he has all these privileges. For example, he gets like chefs in, but he's still a prisoner. but he's a privileged. That's crazy. You just mentioned that.
That is, man, and I honestly had no idea about, because I haven't seen that series. But I
Smith,
could just
Smith, you just revealed yourself as a casting agent.
Oh God, Agent Smith.
It's funny you say about like in the modern day cinema they would cast someone who's a bit more of a bruiser or something like that.
Yeah.
But the screenwriter actually wanted an actor called Nicole Williamson, which is a male name, but for the role of Mr. Bridger, who is a character he envisaged as tough as nails and like totally in control of the situation. Now he was someone who was recognised as one of the greatest actors of the 60s and 70s, like rivaled only by Sir Albert Finney as well.
Oh wow! Okay.
Not a load of films that perhaps we might be familiar with. He did like Excalibur with Sean Connery. He was in Return to Oz, which are kind of more well-known films, but I think there was some around that period that he was obviously very well respected for. But again, they ended up going with Noel Coward, who, and when they did, it completely changed the tone of the character, and they could do a lot more with it, I guess, in some respects, and kind of, it's just like he goes in and has a scene with the person who runs the prison, who's played by the old boy from Dad's Army.
Dad's Army.
Or something like that. Yeah, he plays, And
basically like reprimands him for allowing Michael Caine's characters to sneak back into the prison in his toilet during like his sort of preserved toilet time and ruining his kind of, how would you describe it? Almost his timing in terms of when he wants to go to the loo.
I like how they do, how they present Noel Coward's Mr. Bridger's jail cell. It's just one big shrine to
the Queen.
The Queen.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Queen Elizabeth. It's just one big shrine. All these posters, because obviously when she ascended to the throne, that generation and like people of my mother's age at the time were just huge fans, because it was like this momentous thing. It was almost like it was the 60s, and here's this new queen who has ascended to the throne. Hopefully I got my dates right there, but like it was just like, here's Queen Elizabeth, the new Queen of England, and so Mr. Bridger like celebrates her, and but not in like some weird sexualized way. It's just he has such a pride for Great Britain, like the Empire.
British values, the Empire.
He's very much the Empire. He's basically Mr. Bridger, the character, would have been in the cinema watching Michael Caine in Zulu and cheering. That's right, boys, you do it, you do it.
Well, and the only reason why he ends up kind of, firstly, he gets so annoyed he kind of sends his goons out to beat up.
Give him a going over.
And instead, he sort of opens the Telegraph or whatever the newspaper it is and realises that China are doing this huge gold deal to buy, I think, fiat from the Italians, or at least putting money into it. And he's like, right, kind of, we've got to get one over the Italians and the Chinese. So again, for that, not so much about the money, it's about the British pride is why he wants to do it. So he kind of sends them on their way, and they sort of stage a funeral to get him out of the prison.
Oh, such a good scene.
Fantastic scene where
it's so beautifully shot.
It reminded me of something like Night of the Living Dead or something.
I wrote down it's like an album cover the way it's shot, because there's that establishing shot, or like, sorry, not the established shot, but like as they're having the conversation, you've got Mr. Bridger, you've got Charlie Croker in the foreground, and in the background are all the guys who are assembled for the mission,
spotted around,
sporadically. It's like an album cover. It looks amazing. It's such a great shot. And it's like misty, so it's not a beautifully sunny day, and they're pretending they're doing this fake funeral.
Does Mr. Bridger think he can take over Europe from a prison cell?
And you can tell it was filmed in Ireland, as I said, for his tax breaks. It's a very like Irish countryside.
That's a very good point. I never thought of that.
And which contrasts really nicely between the Italian part that we get later on, the jail. You've got the jail scenes that you've got, obviously, London, and then Ireland, and then Italy, which but it's great. I love the fact that when Charlie starts like assembling his squad. This reminded me, which I kind of forgot about a little bit because I haven't seen this in a while, but like a Ocean's 11 kind of setup. Know, where they've obviously got that inspiration from. Right, this is the plan. And then, they're all sitting around, they've all got very defined caricatures, because one of, like you say, a little bit camp, and then the other one's like a bit of a bruiser, and they're all like like that. And they do this in Ocean's 11.
They do it in so many films these days.
I guess any
like Dirty Dozen, those sort of films. In those days as well. But
that has what I mean. That is kind of kicked off. Well, kind of is part of numerous favorite exchanges in this movie, where then Noel Coward. He's like, I think he's at Harley Street. And like with the with I think he's like, is he in the dentist chair? But they're all just playing cards with the and it's just because it's all one big criminal organisation. And Camp Freddy, having just done in Charlie Croker, turns out and goes, "I've just completed the mission. Like I've just done him over." He's like, "Right, we're going to go with Charlie Croker's mission." It's like. But it's great because Camp Freddy was like, "Oh, Mr. Bridger," as in like, "I've just done this and I've got to go back to him." But it leads to one of my favourite lines where he goes, "We need a man who's like good with computers. Seek out Professor Plum." And that's one of my favourite lines. Maybe the professor's not bent. Camp Freddy, everybody in the world is bent. And I was just like, fantastic. That's just such a perfect line. Everyone is corrupt. And it's, Benny Hill playing Professor Peach. And to me, this is the equivalent of when we went to see Snatch in the cinema. Obviously not the same comedic thing, but just the casting of Brad Pitt and Mike Reed, Frank Butcher in the same film.
This is Snatch.
But that was such a weird contrast. I remember, like, not to go into a Snatch whole Snatch tangent, but I used to work at the Department for Culture, Media, Sport. We'd get the budgets round for the movie, and I remember seeing the cast list. This is before it had even been announced for Snatch. It was called Diamond at the time, or Diamonds. I remember seeing the cast list, and it had like director Guy Ritchie, budget allocated, and it had all what everyone was getting paid, and it had. I saw Brad Pitt like top. I was like, okay, going down this. I was like, Mike Reed, and I just remember telling all my mates. I'm not supposed to tell anyone. I was telling them, I was like, Mike Reed and Brad Pitt are going to be in the same movie. Like, it was crazy. Benicio del Toro's in this movie, and it's kind of like this. I can imagine at the time where people were like, the comedian Benny Hill is going to be on screen with Noel Coward and Michael Caine. Yeah. Like, what the hell? But it's just, I think it's such wonderful casting, and Benny Hill. People say, it's outdated comedy. And don't get me wrong, a lot of it, well, some of it is, and some of it's just silly fun, like Carry On movies. Yeah. But his character, his obsession with big women is just, are they big? I like them big. He's like, have you seen Matron? She's big. He grits his teeth. I love his character, and it makes me laugh.
He like pushes a large Italian woman onto a bus, doesn't he? And he's just like,
Is that the Italian woman that's like been sped up as well?
That's the Benny Hill scene in the movie. It's really weird.
It is weird because it's obviously Benny Hill, like, is renowned for the all that kind of sped up kind of comedy, and I don't know if they did that just because of him.
But that's the thing. I don't know enough about Benny Hill's back catalogue. I grew up with Benny Hill in like the late 70s, 80s when he would do that.
That show.
In 1969 they were doing the Fast stuff in 1969. So whether or not he saw it in that, and then Benny Hill was like, I kind of want to do that in a movie.
Because she's like talking. Yeah, she's Italian, but it's like a chipmunk basically, and it's this feels really weird. This doesn't feel like part of the same film. It takes you out of the movie. No,
But Professor Peach, and then we get the meeting where he's assembled the whole team. You don't see them all assembled, but again, it's just one of those. I remember watching this with, I said, like Andrew Harvey and Rob King in the kitchen, and this scene we're in hysterics at the names where he's like. He goes, "This is Bill Bailey." We were like, "Bill Bailey, that's brilliant."
Like, Bill Bailey's my number 2. All right.
And Bill Bailey is just like, he's just sitting like, "All right, everybody."
Some of them have clearly not got lines in this film,
or any real characters.
He doesn't really do anything in the whole film. He's just like, "Yes, boss."
Yeah,
boss.
But he goes around the table. He's got. I wrote down the names because they all crack me up every time. He's like Arthur, Frank, Rosa, Coco, Yellow. He's like Big Willie. He goes, and you can see why. That's the big black dude.
I thought his name was Big Mike.
No. Big Mike's an MC for the. And Big Mike used to rap for the Jungle Brothers in the 1990s. But Yellow, and then he goes.
Big William.
Big William, yeah.
Okay, sorry.
He says, I think he says William. He goes, also known as Big Willie.
Yeah, he does, and he says obvious reasons. Yeah.
Yes. Then he goes, Camp Freddy, you all know, and then he's like Roger, Dave, and Lorna, and I just love all those. Like, you can tell that Guy Ritchie loved this film. He's like, we've got to give characters like Soap, Tunbridge. Yeah. I don't know, I'm making up names now.
No,
Franco,
they definitely could be like
Chairleg. Yeah, it's all those crazy things. But and then that leads to obviously the montage of them trying to. Prepare for the Italian job by driving the minis really haphazardly.
Yeah, is this like the kind of training sequence? Yeah, so obviously
trying to get the cards on the side.
Yeah, so obviously they're like kind of driving them over stuff. But yeah, it's funny because I mean, I guess as a whole point, you know, I forget how much kind of comedy is in this film, and you know, like actually it could go one or two ways with this type of film. You could either, if you don't find it funny, it could be like, oh, okay, this is a bit naff. But yeah, I think the comedy still lands even for its time, and you know that is kind of essential. And I'm not sure what they do with the remake, if they do the comedy or not, because I can't imagine how that would sit.
It's
nowadays.
Probably like cool comedy, like, oh, let's say something flashy, yeah.
Good evening, Mr. Bridger. Croker, I've got a job lined up. Get out of here. It's all here. Maps, drawings, plans, everything.
You've been put up to this, haven't you? You've been bribed to upset my natural rhythm and ruin my health.
I mean, the Minis are such a character in this film, and, you know, it's like one of my memories from watching this film as a kid is how pivotal these, you know, the red, white and blue, the
whole Britishness.
Exactly, the Britishness that shines through. But I guess even before that, you get the kind of the Britishness of like almost like the football kind of ness, because England had won the World Cup in '66, so there's this like kind of Bobby Moore celebration. There's more written on the van.
And Peter Osgood. It's like '69. They've gone to cheer in for a football match, and it's something that's kind of part of the reason why they think they can do this job to steal this bullion is because loads of England fans are going to be there.
Exactly, and you know, almost like the Self-Preservation Society song it's almost becomes part of this kind of culture of that time, like, you know, the England fans and
the thing is, I mean, like that the Self-Preservation song is almost like a football chant when you hear
definitely.
Like the beauty of that score. Like, we're jumping ahead here, but when they kind of successfully succeed in the job, it builds up with like in the prison.
It does, yeah.
And it kind of goes into, you know, ding ding bang, ding ding. I was going to say, going back to the montage with the, you know, the classic line, "The doors, you've blown them off." Oh no, wait, that's not the line. You're only supposed to blow the bloody doors off, which is.
Well, they do it like Thunderbird style, and they do the countdown 5, and the camera
it does a crash scene.
3, a little closer.
You're only supposed to blow the bloody doors off.
You're only supposed to blow the bloody doors off.
You're only supposed to blow the bloody doors off. Yeah, I mean, it's, you know, that line, even if you've never seen the film or never intend to watch the film, you've heard that line before, and it's kind of like basically become part of cinema history.
Yeah.
I was going to say there's one issue that you guys must have spotted as well with this film. Where actually, this is going back a bit. Camp Freddy does a reconnaissance mission. He goes to Italy, right? And so he's being filmed by like a friend, with a camera. It's all black and white. And then he's climbing up this staircase, right?
Oh yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah, you know where I'm going with this. He's approaching the staircase. And he's going da 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 da, and he goes, "I have one more thing to say. With all that said, Mr. Bridger, I have one thing to say. Good luck." And and Camp Freddy exits camera. Now, bear in mind, someone is filming him. This hasn't been set up on a tripod. Someone is filming him to send this movie back to Mr. Bridger. But the camera keeps rolling, and the baddie, the Italian mafia boss, walks right up to the camera in like a filmatic shot and takes off his. I don't think he takes off his sunglasses, but it's like. He's right there. Surely if he's suspected he's going to be watched, he's not going to be framed for the camera. It's such a weird little moment where I think they forgot what the cine film was, the message it was trying to do, because immediately Mr. Bridger walks up and goes and realises the mafia, they're after, they know about the plan. But it's like, that's such a weird way of doing that whole thing. It's just, you wouldn't have filmed the Italian mafia boss walking up to the camera and he wouldn't have stopped there.
I was thinking about it when I watched it. I thought, maybe it was like a little camera in someone's pocket or something like that, obviously, but in the 60s there wasn't necessarily, like you think of James Bond films, but yeah, again, like the fact he's looking so clearly at the camera and presenting essentially to it, it's almost like a Blue Peter style piece to camera. And then suddenly he's like reading a newspaper newspaper as he walks upstairs. Who reads newspapers as you walk upstairs? You're going to fall over.
Very dangerous.
But yeah, there's a few things of that where it's like, it's just done for artistic license, you would say, as much as anything.
I think there are moments in that where, moments in the whole film where I do feel like it is slightly clunky, the script, in the way it's been written in that regard, and I think you do forgive it, generally speaking. But yeah, there are a few moments.
It's strange, isn't it? It's like a film where they're trying to get from A to B, like move it along, and then there's a bit where they're like, they're getting the prep done. It takes a while, and then it's basically just like, I don't know, half an hour, 40 minutes of like almost not even that long, but from the start of like the ploy of trying to get the goal to the mini chase scene, that's basically almost the rest of the film, and then it kind of intercuts with everything else. And what's crazy to me is the amount of stunts and amazing stunts that they did with these cars. And like Mini originally didn't want to be part of this film. They didn't want to be involved at all. But Fiat immediately were like, right, we will give you money. Don't use the Minis. Have Fiats all the way through. We'll give you Lambos. We'll give you all the flash cars that you have in it. Like, we'll give you an extra 50k on top. You can have exclusive rights filming around the factory, because there's a scene where they're like riding around, driving on a track on a rooftop. Yeah, and that is Fiat's actual on Fiat's roof. Yeah. But they said we need the Minis because the Minis are part of the story. They need to be there for the British-ness. So they kind of did it without Mini being directly involved, but Fiat were all over it and loved it. So yeah, and
there's something so iconically British about the Mini. I mean, I remember as a kid, it's funny actually, my one of my best mates as a kid, his parents had 2 Minis, and and we used to, his mum in one, and then 3 like of us friends, and then his dad in the other, and another family and friends, and we used to drive. You were
dressed as clowns.
We drive to Italy. No, we drove to Bournemouth actually, and it used to take fucking forever because we're driving along the motorway going 50 miles per hour in these 2 old school Mini Coopers, just like that. And every time we do it, me and my friend Ben used to say, can we put the song on and put on Self-Preservation Society? But yeah, I mean,
if they were going slow, imagine how slow they were going with loads of gold in the back of them.
Well, yes. It's funny with the Minis in general in this, like you can see that we're talking about the speed up of the woman. They're very subtly, like these scenes are sped up because the Minis aren't fast cars, or never were fast cars. So they do speed these up a bit. But it's done well.
I would say they probably souped those Minis up as well.
Maybe.
That. Like when you have these, don't get me wrong. I think there is some definitely, as Simon Tubbs would say, time remapping prior to this being known as.
It must have been quite hard to do it back then, but because you obviously had to shoot at a frame rate that was higher. Was higher, but actually, the kind of complexity of slowing up and speeding down was not just a push of a button like it is now.
No, of course
you're on film, right?
And like they do a good job, but like I say, I guarantee these cars were like super souped up for that chase, and they've got like the stuntiest of stunt drivers. That's actually a funny scene. I forgot to mention when Charlie decides to send Lorna home, and she's at the airport, and he goes, "Just turn around and go." And he walks off to the plane. She's like, "Bye, Charlie, bye." And he's going like, "No."
Yeah, they don't present women in this film particularly well, especially not her.
They're stupid, kind of eye candy, basically, in this film. But the traffic jam is incredibly well done because it looks like they're really obviously on location in Italy, and
I think they
must be, right, and because there are moments in this film where you get that kind of the Austin Powers green screen, when they're driving and stuff like that, and
classic shots from inside the car,
yeah, exactly. But actually, from the exteriors of all the traffic, all of that looks genuinely real. And as the Mini's doing the stunts, and Nige is going to hopefully come in with some trivia on this.
Well, yeah, basically they obviously agreed to film it in Turin, but the authorities would not close the roads, and they were like, "Oh, we're fucked." So the Italian mafia stepped in and shut whole sections of Turin for filming. The traffic jams in the movie are real. Like, all the people that are kicking off are really kicking off because they're in massive traffic jams. And like you kind of spoke about the craziness of the Minis and the stunts. Well, one of the kind of most iconic ones, well, not the most iconic, is the jump off the Fiat factory. It just jumps from one building to another. A lot of the crew members walked off the set whilst they were going to shoot that, and you can see like some of the fit employees doing like the cross, like someone's going to die doing the stunt, but they did it. And like Etok mentioned about like the stuntmen, there's a stuntman called like Remy Julian, who kind of went on and did like tons of like Bond films. And in the most iconic scene when they're driving through the tunnel, he actually did a loop-the-loop.
He did the actual
But they didn't film it. And so when he went to try and do it, he tried 3 times. But there was so much algae in the actual tunnel that he couldn't do it. And he was like, did one barrel roll, and then the cameras didn't roll it. It was the only stunt in the finished movie that defeated Remy, because he did everything else they asked for. There was even like a deleted scene where they were on like an ice rink at one point driving in these minis.
I watched this today, actually. So I bought the DVD for this film. Yeah, so I decided to watch the only deleted scene for this film because I was actually listening to the commentary, and they basically, everything they shot, they used pretty much. There was no, normally they have lots of deleted scenes, but this is the only deleted scene. And it's, the song is called The Blue Danube, which is a musical piece by, Jonathan Strauss II, which is, you'll know it, I'll play it right now. And it's these 3 minis dancing almost with these 3 police cars, and it's basically like a kind of dance scene, and the way they're kind of weaving in and out, I mean, it's beautiful, it's an amazing scene. However, when you watch it, you can see why they cut it, because it doesn't have the tension.
It would have killed the pace of the film. It's a very it's a fun, creative. I remember seeing it on the DVD. It's a fun, creative scene, and it kind of does fit in with the movie's kind of overall narrative. Yeah. But at the same time, that chase is so kind of intense that it would have broke out. The best, like the slowest part of the chase is also one of the most amazing visually, where they drive onto the roof of that big building, like that structure. I don't know what it is. It's like but they drive up the thing. They drive.
It just the pan shots to the side and then pans to the minis dragging across this building.
Yeah.
It's like that. It's shot from a distance. They got this little, like this clunky little bridge thing. They go up to the top, and they each go to almost like 3 separate corners of this building. The police car parks in the middle, thinking, which one do I go to? For some reason, the officer gets out, starts to talk to one, and all 3 minis just go. But I mean, again, that stunt work. They drive. This is all like physical. They drive down this really steep building structure onto this bridge that must be all of 7-8 feet wide, and it's like, how the blood? But these are probably highly paid stunt drivers, and I still think one of my favourite shots is the wedding happening and the cars come down the side of the staircase.
Yeah, the palazzo, and the director kind of said to him that he kind of got the rights to shoot the scene there. It just said there was going to be machinery on the stairs. He didn't say it'd actually be cars driving down it. So I imagine when they eventually did watch the finished cut, they were like, what the fucking hell? Yeah.
But that chase sequence is amazing. And it's, my favourite chase sequences are stuff like the Blues Brothers. That's still one of my favourite. Yeah. That's one of my favourite culture, because it's, I remember my family and I just watching that in the 80s and just laughing, because it's one of my dad's favourite movies, The Blues Brothers. We're just laughing our asses off at the absurdity of the Blues Brothers chase. And this film, it's almost like the Blues Brothers. I don't think it was influenced by this, but it's if you were to kind of say, it took this. The Blues Brothers takes it to like the next absurd level, almost like a comic book movie, and ridiculous. And it is a very intentionally funny car chase, whereas this one is, for its time as well, must be so audacious. Because you imagine going to the cinema at this point, you've probably seen like your standard TV Z cars car chases, like woo woo woo, or anything on cinema. Just be like, this is like minis in tunnels, in situations, going like through shopping precincts and along kind of pavements and stuff,
in like the river as well, and like
the river bit, that's a great shot.
Going through the river, and then the police car like almost like drowning, and you're like, bloody hell.
I always love the way that the police car drivers are so rubbish. Every police car, it's just like boom.
When it comes when they come out of the tunnel and they pull down the gate and the car drives into it looks like there's paper mache guys driving it, and it's just like what? It looks so bad. But I get it. Like you wouldn't. Yeah, exactly.
It's done well with the so we talked about the song, but it's done well with the fact that a lot of this doesn't have the song, and a lot of it is just revving around, and there's not like this like nowadays we'd have Hans Zimmer doing the score and it'd be like bam bam, but now it's in this, it just feels raw. But then you get this kind of slightly odd moment where you have this rawness with the song, which is obviously quite kind of funny and like.
Well, they play it like 5, 6, 7 times.
It keeps coming back.
Half an hour.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's used, especially like because initially it's used on the rooftop bit where they're being chased. No, it's after they do that, and I think it's when they're about to board the bus.
The Self-Preservation Society. The Self-Preservation Society.
This is like one of the most iconic, and even if you've, again, like that scene earlier, if you've not seen the film, I think you'll know the scene where obviously, they're hanging over the edge of a cliff and the gold is tipping them over, and it's that kind of, do we save ourselves or the gold kind of thing, and Michael Caine's like, just get up, get back to the other side of the bus, and then he's kind of on his knees trying to...
Well, it's beautifully done because it's so...
Well, all the music stops, and it's drawn out, and I actually, one of my notes was, I think it could have been drawn out even more, because...
I think you're right.
It didn't last quite as long as I remembered it to, because it is so tense and so brilliantly
It's so beautifully done though.
Yeah,
because that's
so
a set. That's a set they're on. But they do it, like the background's obviously shifting, you get the feel that the coach is tipping. You get a real sense of that, and that's just the set, either tipping or the background moving, or maybe both, like some sort of...
and you get those kind of POV shots as well of, from Michael Caine looking at the gold, but also almost from the back of the bus looking at them. So it's like these two very like polar opposite shots.
It's one shot either side, and it's him like there's one point he gets on the floor, doesn't he? He's like back, so they all get back, and he crawls along the floor, and as he reaches out, he's not going to be able to pull that gold anyway, but he reaches it and it just slides even further, and just when you think it can't slide anymore, it just goes ever so slightly. And then he turns around. Okay, lads. I've got
an idea.
I've got a great idea.
And then the film ends.
When the film ends, I mean, it's brilliant, isn't it? Because
fantastic ending.
It is literally a cliffhanger in every sense.
Very good.
It's one of my.
So you don't know.
It's one of my favourite like endings of any film. It's just so perfect.
Well, when they started filming the Italian Job, there was no ending. And even when they were getting close to the end, there was still no ending. So Paramount Pictures created one.
Oh.
And it was later confirmed by Michael Caine, I think on like the Graham Norton show or something crazy, that the censors wouldn't let the criminals get away with it. So they had to put in an ending where obviously they ended in the situation where they didn't. The main crew and writer hated the idea of this ending that was kind of forced on them so much that it actually was the second unit that filmed it because the first one refused to do it. And when the bus was actually hanging over the cliff, there's some amazing like helicopter shots as the bus is driving along the cliff.
Yeah.
Well, the kind of like the downdraft of the helicopter started to push the bus over the edge of the cliff.
Oh, God.
And all the stuntmen had to like grab it and pull it and stop it from going over the cliff. But yeah, like again, you kind of said this iconic ending was basically forced upon them.
That's crazy.
And it could have been something completely different. So
have you ever heard, I remember like this is maybe 20, 22, 23 years ago, I remember hearing Michael Caine give his idea, he's probably told this story a million times or different versions of it, of his idea what the plan was.
Right.
Yeah.
So the thing I remember him saying, I might be wrong, was to just run the engine so that you use up the fuel which is stored, I'm guessing, at the end of at the back of the thing to lighten the load. Because obviously that thing would have been full of fuel. You run the fuel, and then you think like, well, surely that would counterbalance. Yeah. Because you would lose all those, I'm guessing gallons of liquid, thereby counterbalancing the way. I don't think technically that works, but I think that was the ending I remember Michael Caine saying. I'm sure been like
there was a BBC documentary for his 70th birthday where he said this, and the idea would have been that they all jump out, the bus does go over the cliff, and they sort of go and grab the gold from there. But again, it doesn't sound like the best idea, because obviously surely you need the bus to move it, but that was his idea. But this is sort of very much heading into Nige's trivia territory now.
Let's step into it. Nige's trivia.
Well,
go.
Yeah, so obviously that ending, in 2008, the Royal Society of Chemistry held a competition for a solution based on obviously science, and it did not take more than 30 minutes and did not use a helicopter. The idea was to promote a greater understanding, and they deduced that the winning entry by a chap called John Goodwin, based in Surrey,
John, what you got, John?
was to break and remove 2 large side windows just after the pivot point and let the glass fall outside to lose its weight. Break 2 windows over the 2 front axles, keeping the broken glass on board to keep its weight for balance. Let a man out on a rope through the front broken window, not to rest his weight on the ground, who deflates all the bus's front tyres to reduce the bus's rocking movement about its pivot point. Drain the fuel tank, so again similar to what old Michael Caine said, which is after the pivot point, which changes the balance enough to let a man get out and gather heavy rocks to load the front of the bus. Unload the bus, wait until a suitable vehicle passes on the road, hijack it, and carry the gold away in it. So that was the winning entry. Well done to you, Sir John.
Well, Italian
John
too.
John.
Wow.
But in the DVD commentary, although it was never formally planned, the start of an anticipated sequel resolved the cliffhanger ending by having the mafia arrive in helicopters, lifting the bus back onto the road and sort of rescuing his crew, and then the rest of the movie would have involved Charlie's crew pulling a second heist to steal the gold back from the mafia. So, but obviously there was no sequel ever filmed. So those are a couple of things about the ending. But something else that I found quite funny was the road they actually used to shoot the scene just led up to a restaurant, and the first day they filmed it, it was like a brilliant, like beautiful sunny Saturday and was fine. But then the restaurant was hugely popular on the Sundays, and a huge line of cars appeared at the bottom of the road, and then some of the disgruntled drivers broke through the police cordon, so they had to abandon the shoot. And the next 2 weeks it just pissed it down the whole time, and the snow line came down by the mountain, like by about 250 feet. And by the time the shot was completed, the crew had to clear snow from the road to do it. So they spent 2 weeks trying to like line up this shot because it was so complicated. So, and then some non-ending sort of trivia. You may not have noticed, but at the time of the movie, Michael Caine couldn't actually drive. So at no point is he actually shown to be driving a car. So he's always a passenger. And there's one scene when he picks up the Aston Martin, you kind of see him get into the car, then he's just kind of home.
He's just there.
And then apparently he was super pissed off when he went to the US. The US poster featured a scantily clad woman with a map on her back, kneeling in front of a mafioso holding a machine gun.
I love that poster. That's my favourite poster.
Yeah. Well, Michael Caine, when he's promoting the film in the US, he saw the poster. He became so irate that he immediately flew back home to England, and the film tanked in the US. Like they just didn't get it. It didn't do very well in Italy as well, but it did exceptionally well in the UK, which is why it became a bit of a
because of the patriotism.
Cult classic.
Yeah,
absolutely. And there was actually a remake of this film, as we've discussed with Mark Wahlberg, but there was a remake of the remake, a Bollywood remake in 2003 called Players.
It
was a remake of the 2003 film released in 2012. So Players is the Bollywood film. And then the last bit of trivia, like the minis were used for like the 2012 Olympics. There was a lot of just like iconography in terms of quite classic British-ness. But in August 2001, to mark the completion of a new 10-kilometre sewer in Hull, now the original was filmed in a British sewer, I think in Coventry, and that's where they did it. So Yorkshire Water recreated the famous scene where the minis escaped through the tunnels of Turin, this time using the recently released new shape BMW Mini Cooper. So obviously the new Mini Cooper got to drive through a tunnel as well.
Nice.
Can I give my piece of trivia?
Go for it. Tie a bow on it. Go for it.
Here we go. I've got the bow ready. I've removed the bow from my hair. I've got it ready. So, in around about like, I want to say like 2013, 2014, a couple of friends of mine came over from America. They were like, hey, can you show us around London? So yeah, of course. This is a little bit of a precursor to the story itself. And we're talking about stuff, and we're just talking about movies. And I don't know how we got onto it, like Italian Job came out. I think we must have seen a mini. It's like, we're talking about Italian Job. My friend Katie, and her husband, Adam, was like, "Hey, have you ever seen?" So he's talking about Italian Job, and he goes, "Have you ever seen the MacGyver episode?" And I was like, "What MacGyver episode?" He's like, "The MacGyver episode that reuses like a load of footage from the Italian Job." I said, "What?" And he's like, "Yeah." He goes, and I was like, "That doesn't sound real." He goes, "When we get back to your place, we'll have a look on the internet." So we get back, and amazingly, even though this was like 10 years ago, we find a decent stream of it. And it's an episode of MacGyver. And the episode involves them at some point having to drive 3 minis, red, white, and blue, out of Italy and across the border. And they just wholesale use footage from the Italian Job.
That's outrageous.
But it's shocking because, like, even to the point where I think at one point, hand reaches out and grabs it, and he's eating the make a wish. He's eating the turkey. They do the same thing, but it's a different person. And the even trippier thing is we're watching this clip, and there's a little girl in it, and she's talking, going like, "We gotta get out of here" and stuff like that. And, we're just gonna go over this bridge or whatever. She's talking, she's like commentating, as it were, as they're driving around. And I'm watching it, and I go, that's Susan Blue. And they're like, "Who?" And I was like, the little girl is being ADR'd by a voice actress from Transformers the movie. So it was like, it's so random. If you go, like, seriously, anybody listening, track down the Italian Job episode. The MacGyver episode.
The Italian Job.
Just
It must have been
honestly, you won't believe.
Must have been done by Paramount as well.
Yeah.
So that's why they just found footage. Absolutely.
Wow.
I remember The Fall Guy, and there's a film that's come out for that recently, used a lot of footage just from other films. Like there's a scene from Towering Inferno that was just part of the credits because they were just showing a bunch of elaborate stunts. So yeah.
Oh yeah, like in the original Fall Guy intro?
Yeah, the one with Lee Majors in. Yeah, when he's singing the song. I absolutely love.
Opening has clips from a Gene Wilder movie. Has clips from, I think it's like, what's the Poseidon Adventure? I think there's a scene in there. So they did different scenes for every season.
Anyway, should we review this bloody film?
What do we think of this bloody film then? Who wants to kick off?
We did this.
Yeah, I can go if you want.
Go on, Nige.
Italian Job. It was one of those films. I think it was voted the 32nd greatest British movie of all time, or maybe even higher than that. And certainly the iconic line, "You're only supposed to blow the bloody doors off," has been said by many a British person since, and I obviously nailed it right there as well.
Absolutely.
I hadn't seen this film in ages. I kind of half expected to go in and watch this film and be like, "Oh yeah, it's like bit of a classic 7 out of 10, that kind of film." But I actually really enjoyed watching this again. It's been a while. I mentioned that the sort of opening scene during the credits is just really spot on. Michael Caine's brilliant in this. Didn't even realise Noel Coward was like the blooming Mr. Bridger in this at all. Like I never kind of put those two things together. It was almost like when I found out Orson Welles played Unicron in Transformers the movie.
Transformers the movie.
That blew my mind. Not that we're always talking about Transformers the movie. But yeah,
not at all.
Like really enjoyed this film. I think the stunts are outstanding. Like Smith mentioned, it does lag a little bit in the middle. It kind of loses its way. The ending, I don't know, it's one of those that you either love it or hate it. I always really liked it personally, but I can see why the crew were a bit pissed off in having to do it. And yeah, you kind of hope they do get away with it, but sadly they don't. But yeah, for me, it's a classic piece of British cinema, and I think it isn't timeless because obviously there are certain bits where it does show its age, but it's still as entertaining, I would say, almost as it's ever been. And there's a lot that modern day kind of heisty action films have obviously stolen from this, but could also learn from this. So for me, I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10.
Nice. Go on, Ethan.
Okay, I'll go. This film. So I chose it, which should give you an idea of what I think of this movie. Fucking hate it. This film rips off the ending from Lock, Stock and Two Smoking Barrels, which is the non-cliffhanger of all cliffhangers. I remember like them saying, "This is a great cliffhanger." It's like, no, it's not. He just has to answer the phone by taking. It's so weird. It's not a coach on the edge of a cliff. Anyway. I adore this movie. It's one of those that I can watch over and over and over again. I do every Christmas. It's fantastically cast. I understand the criticism, like you guys said it like perfectly. It does lag in the middle, but I think the one thing this film has going for it, more than anything of numerous films, is I forget who said it, but it has so much charm. It really does. Like, that is such a key word for this movie. Not heart, not like, oh, what a beautiful. It's just got so much charm. You can't but help, like Nige said, you want these guys to get away with it. They're the baddies. They're the baddies, really, but they're doing it for the British Empire. But even though the cast isn't completely fleshed out, I think they flesh out enough of the characters that you need to know about. We know a little bit about Camp Freddy. Noel Coward's fantastic in it, I think. He's a scene stealer. Michael Caine is Michael Caine. And
peak
the Italian
Caine, you would almost say.
Peak Caine, yeah. And the Italian mafia are kind of like the baddies they need to be. I think this movie it's got a great car chase. Even though I understand where you guys are coming from, where it lags, I just always find myself engaged with this movie. I still find it a very, very funny movie. Yeah, don't get me wrong, I completely agree, there's some outdated things in it, and like Lorna could have been a much stronger character, and obviously in the remake they made Charlize Theron character a big part of the main cast. But yeah, I do love this movie. I think it is of its time, but also I could watch it over and over again, and yeah, I just love it. I think it's there's not much I can say about it. I adore this movie, so I'm actually going to give it 10 out of 10.
Wow! I didn't see.
I knew I was going to go for it.
Another 10 from Etok.
Another 10.
We've had a couple of 10s recently from you, which okay, that was no cliffhanger in that.
Again. Because it kind of didn't make sense, but it was hilarious. That was a cliffhanger.
That was almost an Italian job.
In this country, they drive on the wrong side of the road.
Hey, there's another quote.
Such a British attitude. I love that. It's a really interesting film because it is seen as a classic, and I think sometimes with these sorts of films there's no kind of hiding away from the fact that, like it or not, it has this place in cinema history and British cinema history, and it's so perfectly placed into, you know, that kind of culture at the time, but also, you know, it's like you put it on, it is a piece of history, this film. It kind of it shows you like where we were in this time, and, you know, some things maybe wrongly, but, you know, that was what this country was like, and the kind of patriotism was often celebrated, whereas now we can look at patriotism in quite a negative way.
I'll just jump in there. Sorry to jump in, but I would say that it's not a case of people these days look at the Britishness in a negative way. It's a case of they actually question our conquests of the past and go, maybe that wasn't the best thing to do.
Yeah, no, I didn't mean that. I mean just like not necessarily celebrating, like, you know, empire and that kind of thing, but just celebrating being like, you know, this film does it kind of like England, the football team, and, you know, just like, kind of like the minis. Yeah. It's not always just saying, hey, we're the British and we love that kind of past, but I mean just being British, and, you know, people do that with football and stuff like that now, but generally, and maybe the monarchy, but anyway, that was negative connotations. Patriotism has negative connotations, and rightly so in some ways, but also this film just
doesn't shy away from
it. But anyway, saying all that, I really enjoy Michael Caine's performance. I like you, Nige, like Noel Coward, like someone I've studied. Like, I've totally forgot it was Noel Coward. But kind of when you see him in this film, it's like, you know, I was expecting Ray Winston, which was funny that you mentioned that. I was expecting that kind of role in that kind of senior kind of jail kind of prison role, because that's what we would get these days, and we clearly do get this these days. So the fact that they've gone with you know, like this kind of camp royal is excellent. Royalist.
Yeah.
There are things in this film though that, like I've already kind of alluded to, like there is moments in this film where I feel like the script does get a little bit confused and clunky, or I get confused at least. Like, whereas, you know, like some of the kind of setup of some of this, I'm not sure is actually done brilliantly well. I feel like, you know, like the chase scene is amazing. I love the ending. I like the beginning, but there is this part in the middle where I just feel like they just really want to get to the crunch of it, and then all of a sudden we're just there. And there's something about that, and I'm not quite sure what it is, but it's probably just the writing's not been kind of carried through into that film. But yeah, I forgive it because I still enjoy it, and I could happily just watch the chase scene right at the start of the film till the end, and then have the cliffhanger and some Michael Caine, because that's kind of what you want when out of the Italian Job. I would say go and watch the deleted scene, because it is an incredible scene on its own. You don't need to see it as part of the film, but it's brilliant. So yeah, I'm gonna kind of agree with Nige and go for an 8 out of 10.
I would say if you want to, you said you wanted a film like from start to finish, a great film, a car chase from start to finish. They already made it, Smith. It's called The Cannonball.
Oh yeah, that's true. And yeah, guys, what did you think of the Italian Job? Get in touch. Email us on offradarpod@gmail.com. Tweet us at offradarpodcast. Yeah, let us know what you thought about this or any of the other films we've done thus far.
Also go to our website, our new website, offradar@geocities.org.
We partnered with Space Jam, the website.
Oh god, yeah.
Go to our MySpace page.
Follow us on Tumblr.
You can find us on Friends Reunited. And yeah, God.
Self-Preservation Society. This is the Self-Preservation Society.
We need your help. We are looking to grow Off Radar and release more and more high quality content. Please give us a review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your pod. And why not share with your friends and loved ones?
Help me help you.